While you were paying $4.30 a gallon for gas this week, the Trump family was cashing in on a drone weapons deal. While the grocery bill that used to be $200 now runs $260, Eric Trump was celebrating a $24 million defense contract at a company where he works as chief strategic advisor. While 16 million Americans face the prospect of losing health care under the administration's budget plan, the president's family has made an estimated $4 billion off the presidency in just over a year. And yesterday, Trump announced a 25% tariff on European cars that economists say will add thousands of dollars to the price of a new vehicle at the exact moment when the average American can least afford it. This is the story that cuts through everything else happening in Washington right now. Because when you strip away the Comey indictments and the ballroom debates and the FCC threats against late-night comedians, what you are left with is a very simple and very uncomfortable picture. The people at the top are getting richer, while the people at the bottom are getting squeezed. And the policies producing both of those outcomes are coming from the same place. Let's build this picture piece by piece, because each piece on its own is significant, but together they tell a story that the American people deserve to see in full. Start with the money. Using the most conservative estimates, the Trumps have made almost $4 billion off of the presidency in just about a year, according to New Yorker writer David Kirkpatrick, whose comprehensive accounting of Trump family financial flows since January 2025 has been featured on NPR's Planet Money. That number, $4 billion in 1 year, is not drawn from salary. The president earns $400,000 a year. The $4 billion comes from a web of financial arrangements that flow through the Trump family's businesses, digital asset ventures, and investment positions in ways that would have been unimaginable for any previous American president. As of January 2026, the House Oversight Committee's analysis showed that these schemes contributed to an estimated $2.25 billion in realized profits for Trump from foreign payments, corrupt oligarchs, and others. This total rises to as much as $9.7 billion when the value of Trump's digital assets is factored in, with as much as $600 million coming from foreign interests. Foreign payments to the sitting president of the United States through digital assets and other financial vehicles. The committee tracking this is using the word schemes, and it is not using it loosely. The specific mechanisms through which this money flows are worth understanding because they are not all the same. Some of it flows through Trump's cryptocurrency ventures. The president launched his own meme coin, $Trump, before his inauguration. The coin's value is driven almost entirely by proximity to presidential power. When Trump hosts foreign leaders at Mar-a-Lago, when he makes policy announcements that benefit certain industries, when he grants audiences that provide political access, the $Trump coin moves. Foreign nationals and foreign governments buying $Trump are effectively paying money directly into a financial instrument that benefits the president personally. The legal structure keeps it technically outside the category of direct payment to the president, but the economic reality is that buying $Trump is buying access and influence, and the money flows to Trump. Some of it flows through the Trump Organization's hotel and property businesses, which continue to operate and benefit from government contracts, foreign government spending, and the premium that proximity to presidential power places on properties carrying the Trump name. Some of it flows through the financial arrangements surrounding Truth Social and Trump's media ventures. And some of it, as we covered earlier this week, flows through defense contracts won by companies that have the president's sons on their boards. Eric Trump publicly celebrated a $24 million defense contract won by Foundation Industries, a technology firm where he serves as a chief strategic advisor, which focuses on AI-driven humanoid robots for military use. Eric Trump is celebrating defense contracts. His brother Don Jr. is on the board of PowerUs, which just won an Air Force contract to supply interceptor drones to fight the Iran war their father started. The president's sons are simultaneously serving in advisory and board roles at defense companies and celebrating when those companies win contracts from the Pentagon that their father controls through his appointment of the Secretary of Defense. The conflict of interest in that sentence is not subtle. It is direct, visible, and celebrated publicly. Now set that picture against what is happening to ordinary Americans in the same moment. The consequences are uneven. Households face rising costs and reduced support. At the same time, defense contractors and security-linked industries see increased investment and opportunity. War spending arrives immediately and in full. Cuts to health and education accumulate slowly, but their effects last longer. That imbalance is not accidental. The numbers behind that imbalance are specific and documented. Gas is at $4.30 a gallon nationally, driven by the Iran war's disruption of the Strait of Hormuz. Inflation is running at 3.3% annually, with the single largest monthly price jump in nearly 4 years happening in March. The March jump was driven almost entirely by the energy shock from the same war that is generating billions in defense contracts for companies connected to the president's family. The people paying $4.30 at the pump are subsidizing the conditions that are making the Trump family's defense investments more valuable. That is the economic mechanism in plain language. While Americans struggle to buy groceries and pay rent, Donald Trump is making his family richer through digital grift schemes, collecting profits through digital wallets, and granting pardons to the highest bidders. That language comes from the House Oversight Committee's official tracker. A congressional committee is formally accusing the president of granting pardons to the highest bidders and calling the family's financial activities a digital grift. These are not fringe accusations from anonymous sources. They are formal findings from a branch of the United States government with oversight responsibility for the executive branch. Public sentiment reflects these crosscurrents. Polling throughout late 2025 and early 2026 shows a majority of Americans expressing pessimism about the country's direction, with concerns centered on inflation, tariffs, and political division. While the administration points to tax refunds, energy sector growth, and job creation as signs of progress, many households say they feel squeezed rather than supported. Squeezed rather than supported. That phrase captures something that polling data consistently confirms, but that economic aggregates can obscure. The overall GDP growth number and the overall job creation number can look acceptable, while the specific households at the bottom of the income distribution are losing ground in real terms because the costs they face have risen faster than the wages or benefits they receive. In the opening phase of the war in Iran, the United States committed billions in a matter of days to military operations and deployment. That pace of spending stands in sharp contrast to domestic programs, where funding has been constrained and often reduced. The Congressional Budget Office estimated that 16 million Americans would lose health care under the administration's One Big Beautiful Act and related policies. 16 million people losing health coverage. At the same time, the Pentagon is submitting a $1.5 trillion defense budget request, the largest in American history, to fight a war that has already cost $25 billion in 2 months. The money is not gone. It is being redirected away from health care and domestic programs toward military spending and the defense contractors profiting from it, some of which have the president's sons on their boards. The EU auto tariff announced yesterday is the freshest example of how this pattern works in real time. Trump announced a 25% tariff on European cars, justifying it by claiming the EU is not complying with the trade deal without specifying what the compliance failure actually is. The immediate effect of that tariff falls on American car buyers, who will pay more for European vehicles. The longer-term effect is that European automakers may shift production to America, which creates American jobs eventually, but in the meantime costs American consumers thousands of dollars per vehicle. Who benefits in the short term from that tariff? The administration gets a political talking point about being tough on Europe. American auto manufacturers gain a competitive advantage against European rivals, and companies positioned to benefit from the disruption of European supply chains, including companies with connections to the administration, are better positioned than they were the day before. The household paying $4.30 for gas and now facing higher car prices does not immediately see a benefit. The benefit, if it comes years later. The cost comes now. This is the through line of the Trump family economic story. The policies that generate the most immediate financial benefit for the Trump family and its business associates are frequently the same policies that impose the most immediate financial cost on working and middle-class Americans. The Iran war generates drone contracts and defense investment profits for the president's sons. It also generates $4.30 gas for everyone who fills a tank. The tariffs generate negotiating leverage that can be converted into deals, some of which benefit businesses connected to the administration. They also raise consumer prices. The defense budget expansion generates enormous contracts flowing to the defense industry. It also redirects money from domestic spending that supports the families who can least absorb the loss. The administration's official response to all of this is the Republican economic case articulated by the Ways and Means Committee, which points to tax cuts, job creation, and rising wages as evidence that the policies are working for ordinary Americans. That case is not without merit. The unemployment rate is near 4.4%. The largest tax cuts in American history have delivered meaningful refunds to millions of working families. Real wages in some categories have risen faster than inflation. The administration's tax policy has genuinely put more money in some Americans' pockets. The question that the contrast between Trump family profits and ordinary American economic anxiety forces into the open is not whether the economy has any positive elements. It is whether the distribution of gains and losses is equitable, and whether the people making policy decisions are making them in the public interest or in their own financial interest. When the president's son celebrates a $24 million defense contract from the Pentagon, the same week the Pentagon's acting comptroller testifies that the department has spent $25 billion on a war with no defined endpoints, the conflict of interest is not hypothetical. It is financial and specific. When the president announces a 25% tariff on European cars that will raise prices for American consumers, and then adds a line saying there will be no tariff if European companies build cars in the United States, which creates American jobs and American economic activity that benefits American property markets, including properties carrying the Trump name, the potential for the policy to serve private interests alongside public ones is not paranoia. It is arithmetic. The founders of the American Republic were so concerned about this exact dynamic that they wrote the emoluments clauses into the Constitution specifically to prevent a president from using the power of the office to enrich himself and his family. Those clauses have never been effectively enforced against a president who is determined to test their limits, partly because the legal mechanisms for enforcement have never been definitively resolved by the courts, and partly because enforcement ultimately requires political will that does not exist when the president's party controls both chambers of Congress. What exists instead is the contrast, a president's family making an estimated $4 billion off the presidency in its first year, defense contracts going to companies with the president's sons on the board, the president announcing tariffs that raise costs for ordinary Americans while creating conditions that benefit certain industries connected to the administration, and at the same time, gas at $4.30 a gallon, 16 million Americans facing the loss of health care, grocery bills that have risen 15 to 20% over the past 2 years, families across the country who tell pollsters they feel squeezed rather than supported. That contrast is not a coincidence. It is the logical output of a set of policy decisions made by people who had both public power and private financial interest in the outcomes of those decisions. The American people are living with the results of that combination right now, every time they fill a gas tank, every time they push a grocery cart to the checkout, every time they open a medical bill. And in November, they will have an opportunity to render a verdict on it. The only question is whether the electoral system through which they will cast that verdict, already significantly reshaped by the Supreme Court's voting rights ruling this week, is still capable of reflecting what the American people actually wanted to say.